You know how everyone believes the Burj Khalifa is the tallest building in the world? Well, make way because a new king of the skyline is coming. And that's Egypt's Oblisco Capitale Tower, which will cost a gigantic $3.6 billion to build. So, who's behind this revolutionary project, and how is it even possible to build such a large structure? Stick around to find out how this architectural marvel is keeping the world waiting. Why build the tower in the first place? Egypt has always been known for its building prowess. I mean, they built pyramids long before cranes and tractors even existed. But why in the world would they plan to build a tower that touches the clouds? Literally. What could possibly be the reason for such a bold move? Well, you may think it's just about bragging rights or beating the Burj Khalifa. But believe it or not, the idea actually runs a lot deeper than that. It all kicked off when Egypt launched plans for the new administrative capital. And trust me when I say that this was no small side project. We're talking about an entirely new city being built from scratch east of Cairo, meant to ease congestion in the capital and create a futuristic hub for politics, business, and culture. The Egyptian government wanted a structure that would define this new chapter, something that screamed ambition. And that's where the Oblisco Capitale concept came in. As I mentioned earlier, Egypt has always been a country of monuments. And it's not just the Great Pyramids, as they're also known for their ancient temples. So yes, Egyptians have never shied away from thinking big. So when the team behind this new skyscraper asked themselves what kind of building would reflect Egypt's soul, they looked back at their roots. That's when the ancient obelisk came into the picture. But the Egyptians didn't just build obelisks as decorations. They used them to connect earth and sky, gods and humans. They symbolized power, eternity, and genius. And so, what better shape to reimagine than that? But the architects didn't just want another tall tower with shiny glass and fancy interiors. They wanted something with actual meaning. The Oblisco Capitale would take the obelisk idea and explode it into the 21st century. Not just a stone needle anymore, but a smart, futuristic vertical city built with Egyptian pride, powered by sunlight, and rising a full kilometer into the sky. It was a way of saying, look, we're not just remembering the past, we're building on it for the future. And here's the thing. This wasn't just about showing off to tourists or trying to top global rankings. This tower was pitched as something deeply symbolic. It was about confidence, about telling Egyptians at home and people around the world that the country is heading forward fast. Not just rebuilding, but reimagining, creating something new and spectacular that still echoes thousands of years of culture. Also, while most countries put their icons in old cities, Egypt decided to plant its crown jewel right in the center of its new capital. And that says something big. It means the future is the focus. And not in a vague sense either. This was meant to inspire new generations of architects, scientists, and dreamers, to make them believe that yes, Egypt can lead the world again in design, technology, and urban creativity. So, to answer the question, why build that tower in the first place? The real answer is identity. It's about vision, about reclaiming the nation's ancient legacy of sky-high innovation and reshaping it into something modern and meaningful. The Oblisco Capitale wasn't designed just to be the tallest building in the world. It was meant to become a symbol, one that proudly says, Egypt isn't just looking up, Egypt is rising. Main features of the Oblisco Capitale. Now, let's get into the real jaw-dropping part. I'm talking about the features of the Oblisco Capitale, because this isn't just another glass tower with a few penthouses and some flashy lights. The Oblisco Capitale is like if you took a spaceship, a palace, and a science museum and stacked them all on top of each other. It's wild, it's huge, and if it ever gets built, it'll shatter every building construction record known to man. First up, let's talk about height. This building is set to tower above 1,000 meters. That's a full kilometer straight into the sky. To put it in perspective, the Burj Khalifa stands at 828 meters. And if you think that's insane, just know that the Oblisco Capitale would rise about 200 meters higher. That's taller than stacking the Eiffel Tower on top of the Burj. And no, that's not even an exaggeration. The thing is almost double the height of New York's Empire State Building. That's how monumental this project is. Now, the whole structure is made up of 6 main stacked segments, each one serving a different purpose. At the base is a massive podium that handles pretty much everything fancy, from ballrooms to conference centers, high-end restaurants, and even a luxury mall. And as you would imagine, each area has its own separate entrance, which helps manage the flow of people while keeping things smooth and elegant inside and outside. Climb higher, and you'll find 4 separate hotels taking up a whopping 96 floors. That's almost like having 4 skyscrapers of their own, just for travelers. Right above that is a helipad, which splits the hotels from the corporate offices. So if you're a CEO looking for the best view in the world while sipping coffee, this would be your dream office. Then you hit the residential zone. Here, there are 29 floors dedicated to homes, including high-end apartments and observatories. Yes, you heard that right. 2 full levels just for sky viewing. These observatories are expected to offer stunning views not just of Cairo, but far beyond. Imagine looking out and seeing the Nile, the desert, and the new capital all in one sweep. I mean, no other building offers such breathtaking views. But wait, it gets better. Higher up, there are VIP residences and 10 floors reserved as presidential guest palaces. These are basically ultra-luxury sky mansions, the kind of place world leaders might stay when they're visiting. In total, we're talking anywhere from 210 to 236 stories. The final number might vary, but no matter what, it's a monster of a building. Now let's talk about design. On the outside, the Oblisco Capitale looks like a mix of ancient Egyptian art and modern flair. The shape mimics a traditional obelisk, but it also has lotus flower details and Art Deco touches to give it that golden age elegance. On sunny days, the building uses gold-colored louvers that rotate with the sun to reduce heat and glare. Basically, it cools itself by adjusting to the sun's movement. How smart is that? The south side of the tower is covered in photovoltaic glass. That means it literally turns sunlight into electricity. So not only does it sparkle during the day, but it also powers itself. Inside, you'll find gold-embroidered designs, massive marble columns, and natural light pouring into every space. It's sustainable, stylish, and super high-tech all at once. And it doesn't stop there. Because outside the tower is an entire mini-city. You'll find canals that look like the Nile, massive green parks, culture centers, business districts, bike lanes, jogging paths, and even a golf course. And for fun, there's actually a dancing fountain. Simply put, the Oblisco Capitale wasn't just designed to be tall. It was designed to be unforgettable. And if you're the type that loves to visit awesome structures, add this to your bucket list. When will it be built, and what's the recent progress? So, you may have seen the stunning visuals of Oblisco Capitale in Egypt's Vision 2030 promotional videos. You know, the ones with that gleaming 1-kilometer tall tower piercing the sky like it's auditioning to replace the pyramids. But here's the reality check. As of today, Oblisco Capitale is still just a concept. Yes, it's a dream on paper, not yet a steel and concrete giant. Now, before you start wondering if the whole new administrative capital is a hoax too, let's clear that up. The new capital is very much real and under heavy construction east of Cairo. Entire districts are popping up from the desert sands. Government ministries are moving in, business zones are being developed, and entire neighborhoods are taking shape. The Central Business District, or CBD for short, is already booming. One of its showpieces, the iconic tower, recently topped out at 394 meters, making it the tallest building in Africa. But Oblisco Capitale? That one is still waiting for its turn. Originally, the buzz was that construction could start somewhere between 2025 and 2030, with hopes of finishing it before the decade ends. But that timeline is looking more like a goalpost than a schedule. The design has been approved, which is a great start, but here's the catch. No contractor has been hired, no tenders have been announced, and no shovel has touched the ground for this particular tower. And in case you don't know how big projects like this usually work, there's a whole chain of events that needs to happen before anything gets built. First, there's design and planning. That part's done. Then there's tendering, which means inviting construction companies to bid for the job. After that comes financing, and then actual construction. For now, Oblisco Capitale hasn't even made it to stage 2 yet. So why the delay? Well, mega towers are not easy to pull off. They need serious investment, advanced engineering, top-tier contractors, and most importantly, long-term political and economic stability. Egypt is aiming high, but even with the momentum behind the new capital, Oblisco Capitale is still on standby. The tower is so massive and ambitious that it needs a perfect mix of timing, money, and international partnerships to even begin. That being said, the vision is still alive. You'll find the tower popping up in architectural magazines, urban development expos, and Egyptian development campaigns. Sort of like a symbol of what Egypt wants to be. Not just historically great, but futuristically bold. The fact that the country even dares to dream of a 1-kilometer skyscraper speaks volumes about where it sees itself in the global story. So to sum it up, yes, the tower has been designed, approved, and heavily promoted. But no, construction hasn't started yet. While other towers in the new capital are climbing skyward, Oblisco Capitale is still in the waiting room. Until we see that first groundbreaking ceremony, we'll just have to keep watching and hoping that this dream eventually turns into reality. Who will pay for it and how money was raised? Alright, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Or should we say the big skyscraper with the $3.6 billion price tag? Because let's be honest, you don't just build the tallest tower in the world with pocket change. So where's all that money going to come from? The tower's official estimate sits somewhere around $3.6 billion. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. And so far, no full financial breakdown has been released to the public. What we do know is that El Nasser Housing and Development, a state-owned Egyptian developer, is the main party behind this mega project. They partnered with IDEA, the Egyptian design firm responsible for the stunning concept and architectural renderings. But here's where things get interesting. Because the tower has yet to enter the tendering phase, no formal contracts or payment schedules have been made public. That means no builder has been hired and no definitive investor has been locked in. But that hasn't stopped speculation, though, because according to several reports, including commentary from financial forums and development insiders, China might be stepping in as a potential funder. Some sources even mention a possible loan from Chinese banks, with a long-term payment plan stretched over 10 years. But why China? Well, China has already invested heavily in the new administrative capital, especially in the central business district where the iconic tower was built by the China State Construction Engineering Corporation. It wouldn't be surprising if they became part of this project too. Some online users even calculated that the cost of Oblisco Capitale would equal around 1% of Egypt's annual GDP. That's huge. But with Chinese funding and strategic installment plans, it becomes slightly more manageable. Now, of course, that's assuming those deals are real and not just proposals floating around on PowerPoint slides in some developer's office. So far, nothing has been confirmed by either the Egyptian government or Chinese financiers. What we do know is that El Nasser has pitched flexible funding options, possibly involving public-private partnerships, international investors, and of course, long repayment timelines. Another potential funding route is selling space before the tower is even built. We're talking about early investments from luxury hotel chains, business conglomerates, and high-net-worth individuals who want their name on one of the tower's many VIP levels. Think branded residences, corporate offices, and even observatory naming rights. It's all on the table. That being said, without confirmed funding, the project remains a high-stakes gamble. But that's also what makes it so fascinating. If the money does come together, this could become one of the biggest and most iconic construction stories in modern history. And if it doesn't, well, it'll remain one of the boldest blueprints the world has ever seen. So for now, the finances behind Oblisco Capitale are a mix of ambition, strategic partnerships, and a lot of waiting. The dream is there. The price tag is known. But until someone signs on the dotted line, the world's tallest tower is still looking for its biggest backer. Challenges faced and how to overcome them. As you can imagine, building a 1-kilometer high tower in the middle of the Egyptian desert isn't just ambitious, it's next-level crazy. And you know what? It's also incredibly complicated. You may think skyscrapers are a modern marvel we've mastered by now, but even the tallest buildings today stop well short of Oblisco Capitale's dream height. Burj Khalifa is only 828 meters, but this Egyptian monster is aiming for around 1,080 meters. That's over 200 meters taller. At that height, the game changes completely. And let's start with the most obvious issue, and that's wind. When you go that high up, the building doesn't just stand there, it moves. And since wind forces are brutal, imagine swaying at the top while trying to have dinner in your presidential penthouse. Not fun! Engineers will need to figure out how to reduce the sway while keeping the structure flexible enough not to crack under pressure. That's why many experts suggest placing the highest occupied floors well below the top, while the uppermost part may just be decorative or filled with equipment to reduce the effects of motion on people. Now think about the ground. Egypt sits in a relatively stable region, but earthquakes aren't unheard of. A building this tall has to survive both high winds and ground shakes. That means ultra-deep foundations, tuned mass dampers, and a lot of math. Advanced simulation tools will need to test every angle before a single brick gets laid. But it's not just Mother Nature throwing problems. The desert climate adds a new layer of difficulty. Temperatures in Egypt can get ridiculously hot, especially during summer. But that's where Oblisco's futuristic design comes in. The rotating lotus-shaped louvers don't just look cool, they are cool. Literally. They move with the sun, providing shade throughout the day, cutting down on the heat entering the building. That means less energy needed for air conditioning. And on top of that, the southern side of the tower will be covered in photovoltaic glass. So this glass doesn't just let light in, it turns sunlight into electricity. Now that's smart architecture. Still, even the best ideas mean nothing if you can't build them. And hauling enough steel, glass, marble, and machinery into the middle of a newly built city? That's a massive logistical task. But Egypt is planning ahead. Road, rail, and even monorail links are being set up to move workers and materials around efficiently. According to updates from February 2025, the monorail system is almost complete, and that's a big step forward. However, there's one more challenge we can't ignore. That's money and politics. Projects this big almost always get tangled in red tape, rising costs, and public opinion. Egypt has already poured billions into its new administrative capital, and the tower is seen by many as either a cherry on top or a step too far. Some locals worry that it's just a vanity project, something flashy that won't help ordinary Egyptians struggling with housing, healthcare, or education. That being said, it's not impossible to overcome these obstacles. What's needed now is real commitment. The design work exists. The master plan is out there. But for the project to leave the drawing board and become a real skyline icon, Egypt will need solid financing, trusted investors, finalized contracts, and above all, political will that doesn't back down. Until then, Oblisco Capitale stays in dream mode. But it's a dream that's inching closer to reality, one bold step at a time. What it would mean for Egypt and the local area. So let's imagine for a second. You're walking through Egypt's new administrative capital and you look up. Way, way up. There it is. Oblisco Capitale. A tower so tall it disappears into the sky. If it ever gets built, this won't just be another skyscraper. It'll be the tallest structure on Earth. That's more than just a fun fact for a quiz night. This could completely change how the world sees Egypt. First off, the tower would become the beating heart of the new city's central business district. We're not just talking about some offices and cafes. Oblisco is designed to be its own vertical city. It's got homes, hotels, offices, malls, restaurants, observatories, presidential guest palaces, you name it. Everything packed into 236 stories. The idea is to create a fully functioning ecosystem in one structure. You could live, work, shop, and even catch a helicopter, all without ever leaving the building. This kind of development would grab the world's attention instantly. Tourists would flock to see the new tallest building. Businesses would want offices with a view. Architects and designers would study it. And investors would take Egypt more seriously. It's a powerful symbol that says, we're not just keeping up, we're leading the way. On a more local level, the tower could become a real job generator. During construction alone, thousands of workers will be needed across dozens of different industries, from materials to logistics to high-tech engineering. And once it's up and running, even more jobs, especially in hospitality, security, maintenance, retail, and transport. The surrounding area could see a major boom too. Right now, some people call the new capital a ghost city, since it's got beautiful roads and shiny buildings, but not enough people. Oblisco could change that. The tower will be surrounded by parks, lagoons, cycling paths, cultural centers, and a giant dancing fountain. But these are not just decorations. They are designed to draw in real communities, families, entrepreneurs, and creatives. No jokes. They could finally start filling this city with a real life. But here's the twist. Not everyone's cheering. Some Egyptians look at the Oblisco project and wonder, do we really need this? On platforms like Reddit, critics argue that the government should focus more on solving Cairo's overcrowding, improving schools, or fixing hospitals before chasing world records. And those are fair points. It's a balancing act between long-term vision and short-term needs. In simple terms, Oblisco Capitale is a double-edged sword. On one side, it could spark innovation, boost national pride, and reshape Egypt's future. On the other, if not handled properly, it could drain resources, invite backlash, or sit half-finished as a reminder of misplaced priorities. On a positive note, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has described Oblisco Capitale as a symbol of Egypt's future. He called it bold, modern, and built to inspire generations regionally. So, what will this project really mean for Egypt? That depends on the follow-through. If built with care, commitment, and genuine purpose, it could become a symbol of a modern Egypt rising from the sands. But if it slips into delays and overspending, it risks becoming a deterrent to other high-risk takers. Only time will tell. But either way, you can bet the whole world will be watching. Speaking of watching, we'll be following this story closely. But what are your thoughts about this project? Let us know in the comments below. We are committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more visionary builds.